Hi there, my name's Joan. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in the UK. Thank you for joining me today for my Monday mashup. The mashup is where we use a mixture of stamps to kind of create an overall effect, really. So this is the card that we're going to be making today. We are using 3 stamp sets here. So we are using Beauty Abounds, and I have just used this speckle stamp here, which is what creates our background. We're using Rooted in Nature, which is actually a 2 stamp part set, and we're going to be using this slice of tree and also this little greeting here. And then finally we're going to be using a new set called Beautiful Autumn. This actually comes as a bundle, so you can actually buy the punches that go with it, which are really handy because they're quite small elements. So if you want to cut quite a lot out, then they're great for that. So we're not using them today, but I just wanted to show you those. So we're going to be using various stamps from this set, and I'll talk you through the colours and things like that as we go. I will just show you what colours we're using. We're using Cajun Craze, Cinnamon Cider, Pumpkin Pie, Bumblebee, Early Espresso, Crumb Cake, and then finally Pear Pizzazz. So there's a real autumnal mix of colours there. If I hold them up, you can just see how nice they all look together, and it just creates a nice mix, really. So that's our colours. The card base itself is a standard C6, and this is in Cinnamon Cider. So this is 21 centimetres by 14.85, scored at 10.5. So that's our base. We then have a piece of Bumblebee, and this is 9.5 by 13.85. And then a piece of Very Vanilla, which is 9 centimetres by 13.35. Okay, so I will keep the card in here for a little while. I may have to move it as we go, but you'll get the general sort of idea of how it works. So I'm going to bring in, this is our tree bark stamp, and we need Crumb Cake and Early Espresso for this. So if I take my Crumb Cake ink first, and I'm just going to ink the actual bark itself. I'm then going to take a sponge and my Early Espresso ink, and I'm just going to sponge around these edges here. This is just to give it a darker outline, so it's like the bark of the actual tree slice. Okay. So, and I'm just going to stamp that off to the left hand side of my card, a little gap at the top and then a larger gap at the bottom. It doesn't matter exactly where, each one will be different, so that's absolutely fine. There we go, so that's our bark. Now what I want to do is to start stamping our actual leaves around the edges so that we can start building up our picture. So I'm going to take Early Espresso ink, which I've used for all of the outlines. It's just a little bit softer than using black, and it coordinates lovely with what we're using. And the first stamp I'm going to take is the little oak leaf, and I'm going to stamp this off the edge of my page in my top corner. So this is at 12 o'clock. I'm then going to move it round to 3 o'clock, and I'm going to stamp it again. And then I'm going to turn it again and stamp it at 6 o'clock. So I've got top, bottom and middle. I'm then going to come back in and I'm going to do another one in the middle of those. Now, I'm not measuring anything. I'm obviously just stamping as I go. So don't, it's quite random. So don't feel under pressure. So I'm going to take next what could be a maple leaf or a sycamore leaf. I think it's probably more maple than sycamore, but we're going to pop these in. I like to lay down all my actual leaves so I can start building up my design, and then I will go back through and add the colour afterwards. So this is the little pine cone here. So I'm going to stamp that. I'm going to leave a gap here and stamp another one there. Leave a gap, stamp another one. leave a gap and then stamp another one there. Okay, so next I'm going to take the little acorn stamp and I'm going to stamp these again in the gaps between the pine cones here. And I'm just going to do one little one just off the page there. Okay, so now I've done all those, I'm going to lay the rest of my colours down and then I will come back and do the little leaves, because the little leaves are sort of the gap fillers really. So what we're going to do is start off, I think, with our oak leaves, and I'm going to actually do it like a two-tone colour so you can see how easy it is to sort of mix your colours really. So I'm using two colours. I'm using cinnamon cider and also this is Cajun Craze. So forget all the names. So I'm going to take my stamp. So this is our oak. I'm going to stamp it, ink it first in my lightest colour, which in this case is my cinnamon cider. I'm then going to lightly just tap it or roll it into my Cajun Craze. So it's going to give me sort of a two-tone effect. Now I just want to try and line this up the best I can. Normally, if I was stamping this myself, I'd be sort of leaning over it, but I can't because of the camera. So if I'm slightly off, that will explain why, but it doesn't matter. The overall effect is still beautiful. Okay, so light one first in the dark. Light one first in the dark. It's very subtle, this combination, but once it dries it does show up a little bit more. That one is a little bit out. I'm going to show you how to rectify that in a moment, so I don't want you to panic if it doesn't quite line up first time. Okay, so I will go back and do that part with you. So I've done those acorn leaves. So next what I want to do is the maples. So I'm going to do it two-tone again, and this time I'm going to use Bumblebee and Pumpkin Pie. So my lightest colour this time is Bumblebee, and then Pumpkin Pie is going to be my darker colour. Now you do just need to be a little bit careful with this so that you don't get sort of any smudges from the mix of the two colours, but provided you're careful you should be okay. So Bumblebee, I'm just going to roll it a little bit into my Pumpkin Pie. Now you can see, if I show you there, you can see the difference is quite stark on these, so you can get away with sort of mixing them quite nicely really. And I do have a quick look just to see if there's any sort of lines or anything on it. So again, I'm going to line this up over the top and stamp it down. So you can see the difference. It is quite obvious with these ones, which is nice. So again, just roll it in a little bit. Make sure I haven't got any sort of little lines on it. When I'm happy, then I'm going to stamp it over the top. Light one, dark one. Light one, dark one. Okay, so you can see the overall effect is really pretty. We have got these odd little gaps where it's not lined up. I don't think it personally matters a huge amount. You can see I've got them on here as well. It's the overall effect that you're trying to achieve. So next I am going to do the pine cones. For the pine cones I have used cinnamon cider. This is just on its own. I haven't mixed this one with anything else. So if I take my pine cone, if I can find it, there we go. So again, cinnamon cider, just start down this end. This dries quite a lot lighter than when it first goes on. It's actually quite dark, but it will lighten down in a moment. You stamp that on the acorn. There we go. So that's my pine cone, and now the acorn is actually in two parts. So for that we are going to use our original two colours, crumb cake and early espresso. So I'm going to start with crumb cake, and I'm going to stamp the actual acorn bit itself. And then I'm going to take the dark one, and this is just this little sort of piece for the top. Again, this is hard for me to see with the camera there, but we'll do our best. Not too bad. There we go. Okay, so that's our acorns done. So now I want to come in and do my leaves. So I can do these exactly as I want to do them. I'm going to take my outline with my early espresso ink. And I'm going to randomly stamp these. But first of all, I'm going to stamp in all the gaps between my pine cones and my acorns. So then I'm just going to do a few random ones. Now, you can put them at any angle, wherever you want, basically. So sometimes I like to sort of group a couple together, sometimes on their own, just depends. Okay, so before I put my early espresso ink away, I am just literally going to ink my greeting, and that can be drying and we can cut that out a little bit later. Okay, so I am going to do my leaves, I think similar colours to what I did here. So I've got Cajun Craze, Pear Pizzazz and Bumblebee. But you could obviously do the whatever colour you wanted to. I'm going to start with the Pear Pizzazz because I think I want to do a few more of those than any other colour, purely because it's another colour we're bringing into the mix, so to speak. So I'm going to quickly do those. I'll try and sort of spread them around a little bit so that you get a nice mix of colour. Okay, I'm just going to quickly wipe that off. And then going to do a few in Bumblebee. And then finally I'm going to use Cajun Craze. So as you can see, the where these little edges are, they sort of get lost in it a little bit. You don't really notice them, but I'm going to just show you a little trick just to get rid of them if they really bother you. Okay, I think that's all my leaves. Yep, so that's good. Okay, so I'm just going to grab a couple of pens. Okay, so if these little edges really bother you, you can just take a pen and just colour in those little gaps. So although you're over the edges of the actual underneath image, it doesn't matter. So you can lose them quite well. As I say, they don't bother me massively because I think it just sort of adds to the sort of like the abstract of it really. So I'm not too bothered, but if it really does bother you, then obviously you can fill those in as much or as little as you wanted to really. I mean, they're it all sort of mixes in and gets lost in together, I think, really. But now I've started, I've got to finish, of course. So this is just the pumpkin pie. I've got, obviously it's not quite lined up there. I'm not going to touch that bit because, as I say, I think that gets lost. It's just if you've got these little white gaps, sometimes they can bother you. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that now. So next thing I want to do is to take my speckled stamp, which if you recall was from the Beauty Abounds stamp set, and my crumb cake ink, and all I did literally was all over the top of where my images were. So I did leave a little bit of the vanilla blank here, and I randomly stamped it wherever I wanted to really. I only want it to be subtle. It's just taking the plainness off of that background really. So that's done. So that's our main stamping done. Obviously I have to cut these now, so I'm just going to take my scissors and fussy cut these. Now they are a little bit fiddly because obviously they're quite narrow. You could try and do this on a trimmer. You know, if you feel happier doing it on a trimmer, then that's fine. I just find it's easier just to try and cut them by hand really. Okay, so this is our stamped part and cut out the actual greeting itself, and I've actually attached some little dimensionals just to reverse of those. I didn't use dimensionals on this one, but I thought it'd be nice to do that for a change. So I've taken a little piece of ribbon. Now this is from the Gilded Autumn Suite as well. It comes as a twin pack with another really lovely ribbon, which is sort of mint macaron, really pretty. This is about, it's not accurate, it's about 15 centimeters, something like that. So what I want to do is I'm first of all going to pick up a glue dot onto one end, quite close to the end, and then I'm just going to stick this down. Now what I want to do is I want to create like a backwards and forwards sort of motion, so it will sit like this. So what I do is I tend to just put odd dots in various places just to hold it in place. The main thing will be held in place by our greetings. So roughly line it up, and then I'm just going to tuck it down. Again, I'm just going to add one here, and I fold over my glue dots so that they're hidden completely under that ribbon. And then I just want another little one down here. I'll pop that one here. There we go. So you can see it just sort of holds that in place, and I try where possible not to flatten it too much at this stage. That's better. So it's raised very, very slightly, and then I'm going to add my greeting on top of that. Now you could line these up if you wanted to. I quite like them randomly spaced. Two reasons. Firstly, it holds my ribbon in place, so I can sort of where I want to put them. Secondly, I don't have to worry about lining them up. So it sort of serves two purposes really. So it's be strong, be happy, and then finally be you. There we go. So also the other thing I added, you can see these little dots here. These are taken from the 2022 in colour enamel dots. So these are in cinnamon, cider, and in bumblebee. So I'm just going to peel those off, and I'm not going to even sort of think about where I'm placing them really, because they're just sort of random added interest. So I'm not thinking about too much about positioning. I'm literally just sort of placing them down where they fell, really. Okay, so that's actually our card front finished. So next all we need to do is to mount that up onto our pieces here. Now you can use whatever adhesive you want to. I'm going to use the Stampin' Seal today, but I've just noticed it's getting very, very low. I need to replace my inside, so if I run out, I will move on to Tombow. So I'm just going to add some of this to the back. Now, where I've got embellishments, obviously, I can't run it very smoothly, so normally if you'll see we've got a clear run on it, it runs really beautifully smooth. Okay, so that's all lined up, and then this should run a little bit smoother on the reverse here because it's not so lumpy bumpy. There we go, it lasted. And then I'm just going to line this up on the front here. There we go. So that's our card for today. So Mashup Monday number 4, I think this is, using the beautiful autumn stamp set. So I hope you like that. I will just quickly show you another card which I have made with this set. It's using a very, very similar sort of technique. So this is actually American sized, this one, which I've used for a different project, but I used a similar sort of technique, but instead of the actual trunk in the middle, I actually used 4 of the sycamore leaves, which were literally stamped at 12 o'clock, 3, 6 and 9, and then I sort of spanned out from there. So it's very random, but it sort of had a sort of flow going to it, really. So and then obviously I use these hearts here, which are from the Be Mine framelits, which are really beautiful, and this greeting is actually from the beautiful autumn stamp set, this one here, which has been embossed in white embossing powder. So you can create some really beautiful designs, and you know, they're quite quick to make, which is really lovely. They are a little bit tricky to line up, you know, I won't lie about that, but hopefully with the little tricks of how you can sort of cover that up if you don't line them up properly, then you'll be fine. But as I say, the overall effect is what we're looking for, and I think it finishes it off beautifully. So I hope you've enjoyed those today, and I will see you next week for another Monday mashup. I'm not sure what we'll be doing yet, but I will see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye.